Hello and welcome to today's webinar. We will cover issues you need to consider prior to submitting a voluntary retirement application, and we will touch on some general retirement pay information. My name is Staff Sergeant Capilli.
And I am Senior Airman Picard.
We will serve as your narrators today. Today's briefing is aimed at officers of the regular component in the grades of Lieutenant Colonel and below. Retirements for colonels and colonel select are managed at the Air Force Colonels Group, and questions on that process should be addressed to them. If you have any questions during the presentation, please make note of them, and we will take time at the end of the session to answer them. Additionally, if you are pending retirement action under Disability Evaluation System, please contact the Air Force Personnel Center Disability Division for information regarding your retirement process. Throughout this briefing, we will mention the Retirement Approval Authority, which is typically the AFPC Military Retirements and Separation section. However, some applications may require review and approval by the Secretary of the Air Force Personnel Council.
This slide displays some of the topics we will cover today. We'll begin with some basic information on eligibility requirements. We will also discuss factors that affect the retirement date you plan to request, including permissive TDY, terminal leave, and requesting retirement in lieu of an assignment or extended deployment, commonly known as a 7-day or 3-day option. Then we'll finish with information concerning retirement pay. Now that you have a brief description on what we will be covering, let's get started.
An important thing to be aware of prior to applying for retirement is how many years of service you'll have by your desired retirement date. U.S. law requires you to have at least 20 years of total active federal military service to be eligible to retire. You can determine your active service time by looking at your service dates. You can find the information in the service dates section of the virtual MPF under self-service actions. Your total active federal military service dates accounts for all your active duty time, including all credible active duty, guard, and reserve time. You must also have completed at least 10 years of total active federal commissioned service prior to your desired retirement date. Therefore, if you had your prior service in enlisted member, please review your service dates carefully to ensure you have completed the required time as an officer before applying. Voluntary retirements are always effective on the first day of the month. Therefore, the earliest retirement date you may request is the first day of the month following completion of 20 years of active service. However, if you have any limiting factors, such as unfulfilled active duty service commitment, that commitment may prevent us from approving your date of request. We will be discussing service commitments momentarily.
Officers who are approaching the maximum service allowed by law or who were twice passed over for promotion will have a mandatory separation date, or MSD, established in conjunction with the promotion and continuation boards. The MSD is normally the date you reach 20 years of total active federal military service, or if you are approved for continuation beyond 20 years of service. Your MSD will be established at no more than the maximum active commissioned service allowed by law for your current grade. Once your MSD is established, you must retire no later than the day following that date. For example, if your MSD is 30 June 2020, you must retire no later than 1 July 2020. Since this date is established by law, you cannot request a waiver to remain on active duty beyond your MSD. However, there are provisions for lieutenant colonels to request further continuation due to mission reasons. These requests are only approved in rare cases and must be reviewed by a continuation board. Questions on continuation boards should be directed to the AFPC Officer Promotions Office at DSN 665-2483.
You've seen how critical your mandatory separation date and total active federal military service dates are when determining retirement. One more important date to consider is your Title 10 United States Code 1405 date, or just simply your 1405 date. Your 1405 date is the multiplier used when computing your retirement pay, and experience has shown us that retirees like to have the correct amount of retirement pay. So we recommend you review your 1405 date as well. You can verify this date in the virtual MPF. It is stored in the same area as your total active federal military service date. If for some reason your 1405 date is not updated in the system, this won't prevent you from applying for retirement. However, before the Retirement Approval Authority can process your application, they must ensure that this date is computed and updated in your record. This could slow down your application notification, so don't get worried if it takes a little time for your retirement application to be processed. It could take a few weeks for the Service Dates Office to validate your record. If corrections and updates are required, we will coordinate with the Service Dates Office to complete this action. So there is no need for you to contact them and duplicate efforts.
Active duty service commitments, often referred to as ADSCs, are probably the most common limitations you must consider prior to requesting retirement. ADSCs assure the Air Force and our taxpayers receive an appropriate return for their investment in training and education. ADSCs also communicate to Air Force members the periods of obligated service they must complete before becoming eligible to separate or retire from active duty. If your retirement date is on or before completion of your ADSC, then a waiver will be required. The most common requests are for PCS ADSCs, training, and commitment incurred for the post 9/11 GI Bill.
An ADSC waiver will only be approved for one of two reasons: when it is shown to be the best interest of the Air Force, or when you are experiencing an extreme hardship uncommon to other military members. If you need a waiver of an ADSC, you must provide clear evidence to support your request. If you request a waiver under the category of best interest of the Air Force, the evidence must clearly show a significant impact on the unit mission and the Air Force. If you're undergoing a hardship, the justification must show that you are experiencing something uncommon to other military members that either surface or worsen after you accepted the service commitment. If your justification doesn't clearly meet the criteria, your retirement application will be disapproved. We often use the term exception to policy, or ETP, interchangeably with the term waiver. To request a waiver or an ETP, you need to prepare a memorandum outlining your rationale for the request, which includes a recommendation from your commander. You can submit this and any supporting documentation by attaching it to your retirement request in the virtual MPF. The documentation you provide is the primary source of information the approval authority will consider. Therefore, please be sure to your request is well justified. Additionally, for hardship requests, supporting statements from counselors and medical personnel are vital to the successful outcome. Fully justified requests will enable the Retirement Approval Authority to properly determine the appropriate disposition of your case. While the majority of the cases received are processed through our office, there are some circumstances requiring us to send the case to the Secretary of the Air Force for review and disposition. We can identify these cases as they come in, and this requires no additional action by the member unless requested by our office.
AFI 36-3203, service retirements, also outlines conditions that are considered common to many retiring members and are not accepted as waiver justifications. As you can see, the situations listed here are not in the best interest of the Air Force or uncommon to most military members. Therefore, we cannot approve waivers for these reasons. Additionally, simple statements like saving the Air Force money don't clearly explain why a waiver should be approved, since early retirement in most cases saves money. There needs to be more evidence for us to consider a waiver request. Let's look at a few examples of when an ADSC waiver may be required.
In the top example, if you currently have a DOS of 31 October 2019, you have an ADSC that expires 15 September 2019. If you request a retirement date of 1 September 2019, you will require a waiver of an ADSC to retire on the date. However, if you request to retire 1 October 2019 or 1 November 2019, no waiver is required. There is one exception to the ADSC rule. If your mandatory DOS does not allow you to request a retirement date after your ADSC expires, then no waiver is required. For instance, if you have a mandatory DOS of 31 October 2019, your ADSC expires 12 November 2019, and you request a retirement date of 1 November 2019. We would automatically waive the unserved portion of your ADSC to allow you to retire.
Now that you have seen some of the basic requirements for your retirement, let's look at when you can apply to retire. As we said before, all voluntary retirements must be effective on the first day of the month. Additionally, applications can only be submitted within 12 months of the desired effective date. For example, if you want to retire 1 May 2020, you may submit your retirement application 1 May 2019 or later.
Additionally, requests for retirement should be submitted at least 4 months in advance of your desired date. For example, if you apply on 1 May 2019, the earliest date you may request retirement is 1 September 2019. If you apply after that, say on the 5th of May, the earliest date you may request is 1 October. Also allows your assignment team to identify your replacement if necessary. However, you may request a waiver to this requirement to retire early. To request a waiver, you need to prepare a memorandum outlining the rationale for your request, which includes a recommendation from your commander. You can submit this and any supporting documentation by attaching it to your retirement request in the virtual MPF. However, to be approved, your justification must clearly demonstrate that the waiver of this requirement would be in the best interest of the Air Force, or that you are experiencing an extreme personal hardship unique to your fellow airmen that can only be resolved through a short notice retirement.
You're probably also wondering when your last duty day will be once you are approved for retirement. This depends on whether or not your commander authorizes you to take permissive TDY and/or terminal leave in conjunction with your retirement. Permissive TDY is non-chargeable leave. Your commander may authorize up to 20 days if retiring from a stateside base, or up to 30 days if retiring from an overseas location. The purpose of permissive TDY is to help you transition from active duty to civilian status, and should be used for things like job and house hunting. Terminal leave is any leave that you have earned and will be taken in conjunction with your retirement date. This leave will be taken after you final out process from your unit. Both terminal and permissive TDY are subject to approval by your commander. Your commander may authorize all, some, or none of your requested leave and permissive TDY.
When calculating your departure date, one thing to consider is that you will still be earning leave while you're on leave. You will accrue 2.5 days of leave per month up to your retirement date. However, the same rules of leave accrual apply, such as maximum amount carried over from the first fiscal year to another. Currently, this maximum is 60 days. So if you're planning on taking terminal leave through 30 September, such as from 1 September to 30 November, and you have more than the maximum allowable amount of leave to carry over, your leave balance will be automatically reduced to the maximum number of carry-over days. Be sure to adjust your departure date accordingly to account for this, or take normal leave before you out-process to use any days over the maximum allowable carry-over to avoid losing them. You may not request to extend an approved retirement solely to take leave that you did not account for. On the next slide, you will see an example on how to calculate your retirement leave.
In our example, Lieutenant Colonel John Doe is requesting a retirement date of 1 December. He has a current leave balance of 47 days at the end of July. Lieutenant Colonel Doe will continue to earn leave all the way through November. By the end of November, he will have accrued a total of 57 days of leave that he may take as terminal leave. If the commander also approves the maximum amount of permissive TDY, in this case 20 days, that brings the total to 77 days. Then you simply start with the last day of chargeable leave, 30 November, and count backwards 77 days. For Lieutenant Colonel Doe, his last duty day would be 14 September, and he'll begin his permissive TDY and terminal leave on the 15th.
Besides requesting ADSC waivers, members must often request retirement in lieu of an assignment or 365-day extended TDY. To do this, you must meet the parameters of the program commonly referred to as a 7-day option or 3-day option. If you are notified of a PCS assignment, you have 7 calendar days to initiate the retirement action. If you are notified of a 365-day extended TDY and you want to retire in lieu of the deployment, you only have 3 duty days to submit an application. The rules of the 7-day option and a 3-day option program are the same, except for the election period. To be eligible, you must normally be able to retire no later than the first day of the 7th month following notification. Members often request exceptions to the 7-day or 3-day option program, such as waivers of ADSCs or being allowed to request retirement after the option period is over. As with any other waiver request, you must provide justification to show the waiver would be in the best interest of the Air Force or that an extreme personal hardship is occurring. While some exceptions are approved, many are not. Therefore, we encourage you to carefully consider your options during the election period.
In order to apply for retirement under the 7-day option program, you must first acknowledge your assignment through the virtual MPF. Then, within 7 calendar days of assignment notification, submit your request for retirement eligibility review. Upon receipt of the eligibility review response, you must complete your retirement application and send it to your commander for a recommendation as soon as possible. Also, remember, if you are requesting a retirement date prior to completion of an ADSC, your request may be disapproved if you don't justify a waiver of the ADSC. As explained earlier, the strength of your justification is based on the supporting documents you provide.
As you see here, the basic requirement for the 7-day option program is to retire no later than the first day of the 7th month following the notification. In this example, the appropriate authority notifies Major Jane Smith on 15 June 2019, so the latest retirement day she may request is 1 January 2020. She may request a date prior to the first day of the 7th month, provided she is otherwise eligible.
If you apply for retirement and there is an assignment loaded in the system, you are still subject to the 7-day option program, even if you have not been notified of the assignment. During the eligibility review, the technician will advise you to complete the assignment acknowledgement, and your application will be treated like a 7-day option. If you haven't completed with the 7-day option rules, compiled with the 7-day option rules, you may be required to submit justification for a waiver with your application.
Although you might not be aware, there are other exceptions to the 7-day option program. If you are notified of an assignment and you cannot retire within 7 months of notification, you may still be able to retire under the 7-day option program if the ADSC for the new assignment will take you beyond 20 years of service and beyond your current service commitments. If this situation occurs, you must request retirement effective the first day of the month following completion of 20 years of active service, or the first day of the month after your current commitment expires, which is later. Let's look at a few examples.
In the first example, the member receives an assignment with a reporting date of 31 October 2019, which comes with a 2-year active duty service commitment. The officer has a total active federal military service date of 15 October 1998 and a current active duty service commitment of 31 May 2020. Because the commitment for the new assignment will require him to serve beyond his current ADSC, the officer can request retirement under the 7-day option program. However, the officer must request a retirement date of 1 June 2020, the first day of the month after completing his current active duty service commitment. In example 2, an officer receives the same assignment, but she has a total active federal military service date of 10 April 2000 and a current ADSC of 31 October 2019. Although the officer's current commitment expires before she reaches 20 years of service, she can also request retirement under the 7-day option program, since the new commitment would require her to serve beyond 20 years of service. In this case, she may apply for retirement the first day of the month after reaching 20 years of service, or 1 May 2020. These exceptions can be confusing. Therefore, we recommend you apply for an eligibility review. If you are selected for assignment and you believe you might meet these criteria,
members may also apply for retirement in lieu of 365-day TDYs. This program is similar to the 7-day option program, but has a shorter window for requesting retirement. Members must initiate the retirement process by submitting the eligibility check within 3 duty days of the event notification. At that time, you must attach the completed notification memorandum directly to your case via My Account on the VMPF. Remember, if you are requesting a retirement date prior to completion of an ADSC, your request may be disapproved if justification doesn't support a waiver of the ADSC.
you are required by law to serve a certain period of time in your current grade before retirement at that grade is authorized. For majors and below, you must complete at least 6 months of time in grade prior to retirement. For lieutenant colonels and above, you must complete at least 3 years of time in grade before retiring. By serving this amount of time, you will be entitled to retire in that grade. However, officer promotions do not incur an active duty service commitment like senior NCOs do. If you have not completed the required time and grade, you may still request retirement. However, you will be retired in the lower grade. If you are under the High 3 retirement plan, your retired pay will be based on an average of your active duty pay over 36 months before retirement. Therefore, it will not impact your retired pay if you are retired in the lower grade.
Now let's look over some general retirement pay issues. Many pay transactions occur when you retire. Calculation of terminal leave and permissive TDY, selling leave back, repayment of any pending debts to the government, and so on. Because of this, your final active duty paycheck may be delayed, so you should be prepared financially in case this happens. A member's final active duty pay will include payment for all unused leave. All earned final active duty pay will go toward any indebtedness to the government prior to being paid to the member.
Now, unlike active duty pay, you will only receive retirement pay once a month. Normally, you can expect your first retirement check the first day of the month after your retirement effective date. For example, if you retire on 1 August, you should receive your first retirement paycheck on 1 September. Many things we mention about your final active duty check may also affect the calculations of your retired pay, like debts to the government, acceptance of the career status bonus, and so forth. These special circumstances may require the Defense Finance and Accounting Service to perform manual calculations of your retired pay to ensure accuracy. This doesn't happen very often, but this manual process could delay your retired pay. Therefore, we highly recommend you have a financial reserve to tide you over for 60 to 90 days in case there are any delays with DFAS starting your retired pay.
Today, we went over some very important information that you will need to know and consider prior to requesting a retirement day. We discussed key things to consider for eligibility factors, ADSCs, and the 7-day and 3-day option programs. We hope you find this information helpful, and we will be holding future broadcasts to cover final out-processing actions. Additionally, we highly encourage you to attend Transition Assistance Program TAP seminar sponsored by your Airmen and Family Readiness Center, even before you apply to retire.
At this time, we will answer any questions that you might still have. I highly encourage everyone to stay through the question and answer period. However, if you do have any further questions and can't stay with the broadcast, please contact us through our organizational email or give us a call at DSN 665-0102.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to answer your questions live today. Just give Miss Lacey a few seconds and then we'll answer your questions live. Please continue to type them in the chat area. For our Facebook Live audience, also please type your questions in the chat area and we'll do our best to answer your questions live today.
All right. Well, first question from the DCS from Adam Langborn. What happens if you get an assignment you don't want but are after the 18-year point? Well, your options under the 7-day option program will be dependent upon the active duty service commitment that you will incur for the new assignment and your current commitments. So, for example, if you got hit at 18 years of service, and the current commitment required you to serve an additional 2 years, then and your current commitments expired before you hit 20 years of service, then typically you'd be able to retire at the 20-year point. It's difficult to speculate on these types of questions because everyone's records are different as far as what their current commitments are and what the commitments are for the assignment that you received. So the best thing to do is to look at, when you get the assignment, look at what the requirements are for the new assignment, and then you can contact the Total Force Service Center or submit an eligibility review request and would be able to look at it at that time and give you a better answer. But normally if the commitment for the new assignment requires you to serve beyond your current commitments and beyond 20 years of service, then you would be eligible to 7-day op. But again, we need to look at each case individually. Okay, question from the Facebook Live from Nick Odell. If you put in retirement after the VML window opens, but before it closes, it's still 12 months. Yes, if you're on the VML and you haven't been notified of an actual assignment match, you have the option under the 7-day option rules to request a retirement no later than the first day of the 12th month following the assignment selection date. So currently in the VML cycle that we're in right now, the assignment selection date was the 8th of March. So you'd be able to request 1 March of 2020 date. Question from the DCS from James Barrett. I had an assignment availability code AAC 50 loaded against me. I submitted for retirement eligibility determination before I knew the AAC 50 was loaded against me and received notification that I would be required to request a waiver. I contacted my assignment team at AFPC and they have removed the code. What action do I need to complete to request retirement as the need for a waiver no longer applies? Well, if your eligibility review is still open or you haven't submitted your application for that particular incident, then you can just contact us through the Total Force Service Center and explain the circumstances, and then we can redo your eligibility based on your record at this time. If your incident has closed, then you just need to resubmit a new eligibility request and we'll evaluate your eligibility at that time. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from Trent Greenwell. I know you went over the 3-day option for 365-day extended TDYs. To be explicitly clear, does this include deployments on CED orders? The 3-day option program only applies to TDYs for 365 days. If you have a normal AEF tasking that's less than that, say 120 or 179 days, then there is no 3-day option program per se. However, if your current commitments allow you to complete the deployment plus 30 days, you can still apply for retirement if you're experiencing a hardship. If you don't have a current commitment that covers the TDY plus 30 days, then you could apply for retirement because that making you go on the deployment would require you to serve beyond your current commitments. So the best thing to do is contact our office through the Total Force Service Center, and we can look at your record, your deployment, and give you a more specific answer. But again, normally if you have a current commitment that covers the TDY plus 30 days, you will be required to go unless you have a hardship. Okay, question from the DCS from Tanya Frazier. Can you please explain the assignment selection date versus assignment notification dates? Well, the assignment selection date can be established if you're placed on the VML. That would be the date of the final VML listing, or if you're not placed on the VML and you're just matched to an assignment, then that would be the date that they actually do the assignment match. Your assignment notification date is the date that you're notified of the assignment and you acknowledge it in the virtual MPF. The assignment notification determines when the clock starts for the 7-day or the 3-day option. And the assignment selection date determines if you're going to be under the 7-day or 3-day option program. For example, if you submit an eligibility request today, and you have an assignment selection date tomorrow, you would not be under the 7-day option program. But if you have an assignment selection date today and you submit your eligibility today or tomorrow, you would be subject to the 7-day and 3-day option programs. Okay, question from Facebook Live, David Ortiz, sorry if I butchered your name. How do I find the monetary value of unused leave? Well, you can talk to your financial services office, but typically when they pay a leave settlement, it's going to be based on your base pay and not necessarily other entitlements that you receive while on active duty. So the best thing to do is talk to your financial services office at your local FSO. A question from the DCS from Robert Radeski. If not meeting time and grade, is there someone I can verify my high 3 calculations with? Well, you can always talk to your financial services office, or you can call DFAS and talk to them about your high 3 calculations. There are also some very good calculators on the DoD military compensation website where it will look at the pay tables and give you a very accurate estimate of what your retired pay would be. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from Maggie Mary. My 3-year time and grade for 05 is 1 July 20, and I have over 20 years of service at that point. Can I request a retirement date of 1 July, or would it have to be 1 August of 20? If you're completing your 3 years of time and grade as of 1 July of 20, then you can request a retirement of 1 July of 20 as well. That would give you 3 years of time and grade if that's what your intent is. If you're otherwise eligible, you don't necessarily have to complete the time and grade, but if you want to be retired in that grade, you would have to retire 1 July 20 or later. Okay, question from the DCS from Lieutenant Colonel McLaren. If my ADSC is due to transfer of GI Bill benefits to dependents, can I return benefits to myself, remove the ADSC, and retire? Currently, no. If you revoke the transferability option, you still retain the active duty service commitment. That's outlined in the AFI that covers the education and GI Bill transferability, and it was also on the contract that you signed when you set up the transferability option. You can request to retire prior to the active duty service commitment completion date. However, you would have to provide justification that shows either best interest of the Air Force or that you're experiencing an extreme personal hardship. If you're approved for a waiver, then typically you would lose the transferability option. So if any of your dependents have used the benefits, you would be subject to recoupment at that time. Okay, question from Facebook Live from John Ratchick. I'm on the winter VML, but I'm eligible to retire 1 August of 2020. Can you confirm that I can still reject the assignment and submit for retirement, even though it will be longer than 7 months later before I can retire? If you're talking about waiting until you get the assignment and then applying for retirement under the 7-day option, if you don't reach retirement eligibility until August of 20, then and the service commitment for the new assignment is going to require you to serve beyond that date, then you can apply for retirement at that time under the 7-day option program. Question from the DCS from Lieutenant Colonel Chiapusio. Can you be forced to medically retire if you have over 20 years in, or do you have the option between medical or regular retirement? If you have over 20 years of service, there's really no detriment to being medically retired per se. It's actually probably in your best interest to go through the MEB process because you're going to have your VA benefits basically lined up to start as soon as you retire. And you have the option, finance will pay you the higher rate of pay if you're over 20 years of service. If you qualify for more under the years of service retirement, then you'd get that higher rate of pay. If you qualify for more under the medical retirement, then you get that as well. So there's really no financial downside to being retired medically if you have over 20 years of service. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from Richard Basinger. Is assignment selection date equal to the VML open date? If not, what is the approximate timeline from VML open to assignment selection? Well, typically, when you're placed on the VML, they should have provided you a message that outlined the timelines for the VML. Unfortunately, I don't have the calendar in front of me, but the assignment selection date for this particular cycle that we're in was 8 March, and I believe the assignment matches start in June. The best thing to do is talk to your assignment team, and they can give you a rundown of when they're going to be looking at your particular AFSC and skills for making those matches. Question from DCS from a Lieutenant Colonel Roa Navarrete. Is there a standard ADSC for CONUS versus OCONUS assignments? Well, the active duty service commitment is determined in the CONUS by where you came from. So if you move CONUS to CONUS, the standard ADSC is going to be 24 months. If you moved from overseas to CONUS, then the standard ADSC is 12 months. Question from Facebook Live from Eric Music. If an ADSC ends on the 1st of the month, example 1 February, which is after 20 years of service, can the retirement date be 1 February be requested? Well, you would have to request a waiver if you wanted to retire 1 February because your active duty service commitment doesn't expire until 1 February. Your last day on active duty would be the day prior. So that means you would require a waiver for that 1 day. And we treat all waivers the same, regardless of the length. If you have justification to show that it's in the best interest of the Air Force or that you're experiencing extreme personal hardship, then we would consider approval. But just because it's 1 day doesn't mean that we're going to automatically approve it. Question from DCS from Mefter Chambers. If I have a mandatory separation date of 21 May 20, do I request a retirement date of 1 June 20 or 22 May of 20? Well, if you're retirement eligible, your mandatory separation date should be the last day of the month. So we would need to take a look at that. So I recommend that you email our organizational email so that we can get with the service dates office and with officer promotions and figure out what's going on with your mandatory separation date, because it should not be in the middle of the month if you're retirement eligible. Question from Facebook Live from Vic Marichal. What happens to my remaining leave if my commander doesn't approve all my terminal leave? Is leave only sold in 30-day blocks? No, you can sell up to a total of 60 days of leave throughout your career. So if you haven't ever sold leave before, then when you file your final voucher, DFAS would pay you for any unused leave up to the 60-day maximum. Question from the DCS from Dan Rosaria. My understanding is a member with 11 years of enlisted service and then another 9 years of commission service can retire, and the 10 years commission service only applies to the ID card. In other words, the member can retire and the retirement base is based on high 3, but the ID card would read the enlisted grade. Well, no, sir, that your understanding is actually not correct. In order to retire, the law specifically states that to retire as an officer, you must have completed 20 years of total active federal military service and at least 10 years of total active federal commission service. There are provisions for officers to request retirement in enlisted status, but you have to be in a unique situation, such as an extreme personal hardship, or you're pending adverse action like an administrative discharge or court-martial action, and you're requesting retirement in lieu of that adverse action. These are very rare, and they have to be approved by the Secretary of the Air Force. If you are retired in enlisted status, your retirement pay would be based on a high 3 average for the enlisted grade, and you would be subject to possible advancement when you reach 30 years of service, which is your active duty plus your retirement, your retired time. And if you're approved for advancement, then when you reach that 30-year point, your retired pay would be adjusted to the high 3 average for the officer grade, and you could receive an ID card for the officer rank. But it's not an automatic thing that when you hit 20 years of service, you can just retire. You have to comply with the law. A question from Facebook Live from Anthony Restivo. Looking to retire, however, I have an active duty service commitment due to education GI Bill transfer to my family. Is there a waiver process to allow someone to retire and retain their benefit since they served 20 years? August of 2019 is 20 years and April of 2020 is the education commitment. What are my options if I still choose to retire? To be eligible to retire, you have to complete the required service by law, the 20 years of total active federal military service and 10 years total active federal military commission service. Additionally, Air Force policy is that you must complete all active duty service commitments and also not be pending any adverse action. In your particular case, if you wanted to retire, after you hit 20 years of service, you would have to request a waiver to the active duty service commitment that you incurred for the GI Bill benefit. And again, to receive a waiver of an active duty service commitment, you have to provide detailed justification, as we mentioned in the briefing, that demonstrates approval is either in the best interest of the Air Force or that you're experiencing some kind of extreme personal hardship that's uncommon to other military members. Question from the DCS from Jeff Day. Would our names be removed from command eligibility lists once we have an approved retirement date, i.e. the summer command boards would consider us eligible for command. However, a retirement application would be submitted before assignments are released. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that. If you email me at our organizational email, I'll be glad to talk to the folks that handle the command selections, or you can contact your assignment team directly, and they'd be able to provide you that answer. Question from John Fadul from the DCS. Do we get 2 W-2s for the tax year we retire in? For example, if someone retires on 1 April 2019, would we get a W-2 for the active duty pay and another W-2 for the retired pay? Well, you would get 2 forms from DFAS, one for your taxable income from your W-2 from your active duty pay, and then also one that covers your retirement annuity for the additional time. Okay, question from Ryan Marvin from the DCS. My total active federal military service date is 1 April 2000. Do I request my retirement date to be 1 April 20 or 1 May 20? If your total active federal military service date is the first day of the month and you're otherwise eligible, that means you don't have any adverse action pending, you've completed the required commission service, and you don't have any active duty service commitments unfulfilled, then you could retire 1 April of 20, and you'd have exactly 20 years of service. A question from the DCS from Lieutenant Colonel Klinger. If ADSC is 15 March 20 and DOS is 20 July 20, can I retire 1 July 20? Well, I would have to look at your service dates just to verify, but if you have completed the 20 years of active duty and the 10 years commission service, then you could request to retire 1 July of 20. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. You had corrected your question. If the ADSC is 15 July and the DOS is 20 July 20, can I retire 1 July 20? You have the same situation as the other member that I talked about with the active duty service the data separation in the middle of the month. Please contact our organizational email so that we can look at it. If you're retirement eligible, then your date of separation should be the end of the month, unless you're on a special tour like the VILPAD, or if you're a guard or reserve officer and you're on EAD orders, then you would be required to request an extension of your EAD tour to get your data separation to the last day of the month. Question from DCS from Eric Johnson. Will an officer be required to pay any aviation bonus received back if an ADSC waiver is requested and approved? The answer is probably. It's dependent upon whether the Secretary of the Air Force Personnel Council would approve waiver of the recoupment action. But typically, if you receive a bonus and you receive an active duty service commitment waiver, you would be subject to recoupment of that bonus. Question from Dan Rosaria. Is it possible to break up terminal leave, such as taking 10 days permissive around 4 months prior to the retirement date and then later take another 10 days during the remaining time frame before retirement date? Yes, but you would need to talk to your commander about your plans to make sure that they are good with him or her. They are the approval authority for permissive TDY, and they would have to agree to that. Okay. Follow-up question from the Facebook Live from Vic Marickle. Sorry, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your names. Follow-up question. I sold leave once before, 60 days, separated once. Can CC deny terminal leave if I can't sell anymore? Actually, yes. Your commander can approve terminal leave or disapprove it based on mission needs. Normally, commander's going to try to accommodate that, particularly if you have a situation, as you described, where you're not able to take the leave and you're not able to sell it back. But again, you'd have to discuss that with your commander. Normally, they do try to accommodate permissive TDY and terminal leave for retiring members. Question from Lieutenant Colonel Foxworth. On behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Michael Capozzi, had an original DEROS of 19 August 19. Functional extended DEROS to 19 March in error to meet my 1 March 2020 retirement request. I've requested another DEROS adjustment to 29 February 20 to meet the 1 March 2020 eligibility. Based on what I'm hearing, do I require a waiver now, or does the DEROS adjustment suffice? Well, to retire from overseas, your DEROS needs to be the month prior to your retirement effective date. So if your assignment team adjusts your DEROS to 29 February 20 and you apply to retire 1 March of 20 and you're otherwise eligible, you would not require any waivers. Question from the DCS from Major Victoria. I am a major who was selected for further continuation to 24 years. I have an ADSC expiring 22 June of 20, and I want to retire 1 March 20 for a variety of professional and personal reasons. By that time, I will have 22 years of active duty service. What are some examples of justification for an ADSC waiver that will meet the threshold of being in the best interest of the Air Force or showing sufficient personal hardship? Well, we don't provide justification or examples of waivers. We look at individual specific situations and determine if it's sufficient for approval. Everyone's circumstances are different. Everyone's mission requirements and unit requirements and duties and responsibilities are different. So we don't have a cookie cutter example that you could fill in to get an ADSC waiver approved. You would simply need to apply for retirement, and when you include your justification, provide in detailed verbiage of what your situation is. If it's a hardship, then you need to provide evidence that supports that hardship. If it's best interest of the Air Force, then you would need to provide whatever's happening in your unit and how retirement would not be a detriment or whatever the circumstances are. But unfortunately, we don't provide examples of justification because everyone's situation is different. Okay, question from Lieutenant Colonel Roa Navarrete. Can you please repeat the mandatory retirement time in service for BSc majors versus lieutenant colonels? I'm not sure I really understand your question. To retire, if you're talking about the length of retirement for a major versus a lieutenant colonel, it's dependent upon the number of times that you're non-selected for promotion and whether you're offered continuation or not. Lieutenant colonels are typically allowed to serve to 28 years of total active federal commission service, but there are age limitations of age 62 for all grades. And in some circumstances and specialties, you could request an age waiver if you're not at retirement eligibility. But if you want to email us with your specific questions or give us a call, then we can provide you with a little more detailed answer. Okay, looks like we got one more question and we'll wrap it up for the evening. Do I incur a service commitment for a mission-related TDY? And this is from Lieutenant Colonel Ritter from the DCS. I'm not aware of any TDYs that would require or that you would incur a service commitment from. There are training TDYs and other things that would require it. But if you're going on an AEF tasking, there is no service commitment associated with that. You just would have to, if you go on the TDY and then you want to retire after that, normally you have to request a retirement date that's at least 30 days after completion of your deployment.
Many thanks for joining us. We're going to sign off now. Thank you.